What's going on, guys? Welcome to Reporting from the Kingdom, your number one place for all Chiefs info news. I'm your host, Bob, joined by my friend Charles. How you doing today?
Doing great. You, Bob?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm excited to talk some football because we've got a lot of interesting topics to talk about. This is kind of going to be the draft episode because it's 2 weeks away from the time of this recording. In 2 weeks, the draft will happen. That's kind of crazy to think, in my opinion. But I might live stream the draft, so be on the lookout for that. And let's just get right into it. So the first kind of thing we've got to talk about is not a good situation, which after talking about positives, talking about it bad isn't really great, but it's important, so I thought I might as well talk about it. The Rashee Rice situation, not a good situation at all. When he got in a car crash going allegedly 119 miles per hour. Both the cars were his. Well, he rented one of the cars, and then the other car was his. And then he got in a crash, and him and his buddies left the scene. And that's kind of where we stand right now. We've been told the NFL's monitoring it. The Chiefs are monitoring it. He turned himself in after the warrant was put out. So he's at least cooperating. That's always a good thing. At least he's cooperating with law enforcement.
Yeah, it's a rough situation to be in. With any luck, Bryce will be able to come back to the Chiefs. Hopefully he doesn't get suspended for this season. I'd be set the Chiefs struggling receiving class even farther back, which we do not want as we're going for the three-peat. So hopefully he'll make it back, but things aren't looking amazing.
Yeah, I bet kind of best case scenario is probably a 2 or 4 game suspension, and the worst case scenario is he never plays in the NFL down again. That's kind of how I'm looking at it. He has like 8 counts against him or something. I don't know how you can do that. He could have thrown away his entire career, and that's just upsetting. Because I really liked him as well. He doesn't have a criminal history. He seems like a pretty good dude. He just made a really stupid decision, and that's annoying. But on the flip side, we've got some other interesting moves by KC, some re-signings and some future signings. First off, the Brazilian rugby player Luis Rees-Zammit to kind of be a running back receiver specialist is what I've heard. And that's a really interesting signing. He's, unproven, of course, having played rugby, but he's got a ton of speed. He's got speed to burn is what I've heard. So that could prove interesting if he makes the team, an interesting depth piece to try to potentially do something later on.
Yeah, I think it's always interesting when players from other sports move into NFL. I think it should go good. Rugby shares some traits with football. Not many, but same general idea of running around with a ball. So he should do good on the Chiefs. I like that signing.
Yeah, I think it could work out. And, the Eagles tackle, I think he's tackle at least, Jordan Mailata. He started at rugby, and he's one of the best tackles in the league. So it's really a low-risk potential high reward. Who knows if he'll amount to much, but I certainly think there's some interesting stuff there with that signing. And then Carson Wentz, former Eagle, technically a Super Bowl champion. He was hurt, but he got the ring. Nick Foles came in clutch for him, and I actually really like that signing because we need a backup quarterback, and he's a good backup. He struggled a little bit throughout his career, but who knows how much that's the team, how much that's his mentality. I don't really know, but I actually really like that signing, and I think he really does help to have that backup quarterback role secured to where maybe you don't feel quite as bad if Mahomes gets hurt. It's still Mahomes gets hurt, then you're looking at a high draft pick for the first time in quite a while. So, but still, I like the signing. He could be a really talented quarterback. And let's say he shows a little bit, then you probably won't get a comp pick, never mind, because he won't play enough. But I still like the signing, and then maybe if he shows enough, then he could go out and get a bigger contract to start somewhere else. So I like that signing. Good signing. Kind of underrated signing, I think.
I think it's an interesting signing. I think that it's good to always good to have a solid backup. And if he ends up developing under the Chiefs, they might be able to trade him for something, I would feel.
Yeah, maybe a mid-season trade. I could see that if he could come in mid if he like plays a little bit well in the preseason, or Mahomes gets hurt for like 2 or 3 games early on, and he
Yeah,
performs
if they have like
well.
a painful situation and
Yeah,
he ends
then
up showing up.
and if there's a quarterback needy team at like week 8 or 9 or something at the deadline, then they could potentially make that trade. That's something I've thought of. Could be an interesting move, but it'll remain to be seen. And worst case scenario, what probably happens is he just ends up being a good backup for the team, which I am in no way against. And then
Yeah,
a couple more signings here. We've got Mike Dana, which is a signing I really like. He's been super underrated his entire career. Maybe had a little bit of a down year last year. That was a 3-year, $24 million deal, I'm pretty sure. And I really like that signing. Dana helps to secure that D line with the uncertainty around Omenahu and his injury, him coming back from that, and also the uncertainty about Uzama, if he will be able to perform up to the expectations that you'd want out of that first round pick. So it is going to be interesting. And what I really like about Dana is he can play outside and inside, which is something I think Spags really likes. Is those guys who can play edge and interior D line a little bit, pass rushing. I mean, even Chris Jones for one season they were gonna play him at edge. That didn't really work because he couldn't set the edge that well. But Spags likes those guys. I mean, Carl Loftus, he's somewhat bigger, could maybe play inside. Dana can play inside. Omenhu, he can play inside. Chris Jones can play outside. So I think that's a really good re-signing to help secure that D line. And then another signing that I'm more kind of, I guess, mixed on, you could say, is Clyde Edwards-Helaire, bringing him back for another year. Kind of everyone's least favorite draft pick of the Veach era. He just
yeah.
he just didn't work out.
Hmm.
And really, after that injury in the Saints game, he was never the same after that injury. And he didn't look like dominant before that, but he could have been something good. But after that injury, he was never the same. But I do think he helps secure to where running back isn't just the biggest need. We don't have to go out and make some horrid signing for a running back or overdraft one, especially in a weaker running back class. So I do think it's a solid
Yeah,
signing, but I don't know if I maybe would have preferred a guy like J.K. Dobbins maybe to add a kind of a different
yeah,
aspect to this team.
yeah. It's all true.
But really, that is something I want to talk about a little bit. Is Veach loves to not have glaring holes going into the draft. If you look at how he fills out the roster, he has a running back too. He's not forced to draft a running back early or something. I mean, if there's one he
Hmm.
likes, then yeah, he can draft one, but he's not forced to draft one. I mean, he doesn't like to put himself in a hole with drafting to where he has to take a position. And I kind of think receiver, especially with Rashee Rice, is more so of a have to in a way pretty early. But that's also a situation that's entirely out of his control. But Veach loves to
Yeah,
not have big glaring holes to where he can take what he wants. And that's really what that Hollywood Brown signing did before Rice's incident. He had two solid receivers, so he didn't have to sign another one. He didn't have to draft another one in the first round, sorry. Which he still probably could have and probably would have with how big of a need it is. But you're not forced to. Or, let's say the Chiefs didn't have Mahomes and they had like the sixth overall pick, they'd probably sign a solid quarterback. So so they don't feel forced to draft a guy they didn't like in a hypothetical situation like that. And that's something I like. He doesn't force himself to draft someone. He's not going to force himself into drafting a position, and then that's when you take busts, and that's when you make bad picks, and that's when you get
yeah.
fired.
That's yeah, absolutely true. Because when you go into the draft without holes and things like that, it gives you a lot of flexibility, be able to trade up, trade down, because you really are just looking to buff the positions that you already have.
Yeah, when you can really make that best player available type of target, which Veach loves to just be able to take the best player available at a somewhat position of need. And now we kind of done the whole catching up, talking about my fun signings that we like to talk about. We get to the really fun part of this episode, the draft discussions. I love talking about the draft. It's all I've been doing for the past couple weeks is looking at the draft. I mean, I haven't really talked about it that much, but just looking at the draft, I love the draft. It's such a fun time. And I'm really surprised it's in 2 weeks. It does not feel like it should be in 2 weeks. It feels like it's still like a month away or something. It should
Yeah,
not be starting this soon.
kind of glad it's soon. Give us
But
more
yeah,
stuff to talk about.
yeah, I'm glad the draft is soon because I really like the draft. It's such a fun event that, like I said before, I'm considering streaming. I'm not 100% sure if I will, but I might stream it. Could be fun. You should come check it
Yeah.
out if we are live. They'll provide some great insights on the players we draft and the players everyone else drafts. But moving on now, kind of going to talk about some of my favorite players in the class. First off, quite possibly my favorite player that we could realistically draft. I'm probably going to have to go ahead and say Adonai Mitchell out of Texas, the Texas receiver. He is just one of my absolute favorite players in this entire class, especially looking at guys that we actually have a chance at getting. He had a really good 40 at the combine. I think probably better than a lot of people were thinking he would, but he had a really good combine at the 40. Everywhere else was great or fine, whatever. And he's shown a ton of really good potential at Texas and a lot of ability. I think you pick him up and you've got a dominant receiver. He's quite possibly my favorite player in this class that we could realistically draft. If he fell to 32, I would have that card in immediately. I'd consider trading up a little bit to take him. The good old Bills looking like they're needing a receiver. All I know is a couple of years ago, they were looking for a corner, and we traded up and took Trent McDuffie. And then they took Kyer Elam, who has so far not looked very good. So we do the same thing with receiver. I would not mind a bit. That'd be great. It'd also be funny to just screw the Bills out of getting a good player again. And I always am up for that. And then,
Yeah.
speaking of the great receivers that I like, Ladd McConkey. Kind of, not everyone else is as big a fan of him, but I personally really like him. He is a route technician. He's one of the best route technicians in this class, from what I've heard. And he'd be a great fit with the Chiefs. Something I forgot to mention with Mitchell. He's also a great fit. But McConkey would fit right in with this Chiefs receiving core. And I think especially with the Chiefs needing receivers that can come in right now, that's another thing. That's another thing that Ladd McConkey brings. Is I think he could come in day one and be a instant starter on this offense, which I'm sure most people in the first round, most receivers in the first round would be, but an instant, great contributor, not Sky Moore, who had like 400 yards his first year, and somehow got like worse his second year. That's always fun, but
Mhm.
I think McConkey could be great if you got him at 32, which would probably be where you take him because he's certainly not surviving to 64. But yeah, it'd be a great pick. He's had a solid 40, pretty good, not like out of the world, but not bad either though. And Ladd is really, like, once again, one of my favorite players in this class, and I'm really liking. I really like the receivers at 32. I think there's a lot of guys we could get there at 32 or with a trade up that would absolutely make this offense better, and especially with how uncertain we are with what might happen to Rice. And then, do you want to take us through some D-line prospects?
So, yeah, we have a very deep defensive lineman class this year with lots of names like Dallas Turner and Jared Verse, but one of my favorites for the team is Darius Robinson. He's a very versatile edge rusher, and he's very good against the run defense, which is something that the Chiefs would definitely want on their team. He also is just a really good inside rusher too, and would be very helpful at supporting Chris Jones and putting pressure on opposing quarterbacks.
Yeah, and I really think he would be a great fit for the team because he's a Spags guy. As we were talking about before with Mike Dana, Spags loves guys that can play inside and outside, and that's exactly what Darius Robinson brings. He brings that ability to where he can rush from the outside or he can rush from the inside. And I love that about him. So I do think that's pretty interesting and makes him a great scheme fit because he's got that ability. And of course, yeah, him being able to play well in the run defense certainly helps because we've struggled against the run. especially from the interior D line position. As good as Chris Jones is, he can't do it all. So yeah, Darius Robinson's a prospect I also really like. Only thing that worries me is it might be 30. Is kind of 32 might be a little bit early, but 64 is definitely going to be too late. So who knows if you're going to be able to get him or not.
Oh, another player that I really like at defensive lineman is Tavondre Sweat. And he's looking to be going about third round, so he's definitely someone that the Chiefs could grab at the end of the second round, since, they've got pick 64. And he is he's huge. He's 6'5" and he weighs 366 pounds. And he's a monster on the field. He also is amazing at stopping the run. And another person that could also really help Chris Jones out in just defending and getting sacks.
Yeah. And one thing that's really great about him is, that size. I mean, he is hard to move. But with a lot of guys that size, they get the issue that they can't move. But he's still good enough at moving to where he can get that pressure. Or he can, get to the running back. He can get to his gap. But if you have to double team him, or else he's getting right through that one lineman. That's what's so good about someone with size like that. And then those are kind of A.D. Mitchell, McConkey, Robinson. Those are all guys we can probably get in the first round. That probably at 32, I'm hoping. Mitchell, a little bit less. But McConkey and Robinson, I'm more positive they could be available at 32. And then, but there's one guy who could fall to the point where we can trade up, but maybe not. And Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU, another receiver, who's another really interesting player. He's got a lot of speed, once again, really fast, good route running skills. But there are some concerns with him, though. I know some people don't like him as much as some other players, like A.D. Mitchell, maybe. Some people think he's a little bit overrated. But a lot of people have him as their kind of wide receiver 4 after the big three of Neighbors, Harrison, and Odunze. Or I guess Harrison would be first because he's probably the number one. He's kind of everyone's number one, good old Marvin Harrison Jr. And then, but Thomas still is really interesting. And if he could fall to the point where we would trade up, I could certainly see that happening. I'm not sure if he will fall, but if he would, kitty, stop. But if he would fall, sorry, my cat's being stupid. But if he would fall, then he could be really interesting. He's got a lot of route running skills. But one worry with him is the fact that he played with another top 5 pick at receiver, a guy who could go the top 5 or 10 with what's his name? Sorry, Malik Neighbors, who's a guy who we definitely won't get unless we give up a lot of picks. But I think Brian Thomas, if he were to be available, would be a great pick if we could trade up for him a couple spots. But to be fair, I don't know with the positions we need to address. I'm not sure if trading up for him is really in the books. But there is a lot of stuff to like about him. He's got height. He's got a lot of good things about his route running. But there are some concerns. And then another player who I am really mixed on is the other Texas receiver in Xavier Worthy. And Worthy is really interesting because he was kind of considered a mid to late, probably day 2 pick, or sorry, not day 2, but second rounder kind of. And then the combine came, and he ran the fastest 40 in combine history with a 4.21. Shocked the world, and then that was elite, and that really rose him right up the draft board. And then everyone started saying Chiefs. Everyone started saying he's coming to KC, that the Chiefs are going to draft him. Everyone started thinking about that, how terrifying that would be. And I'm kind of mixed on him myself. Because, of course, he's got all that speed. But one, we've already got a fast, deep threat receiver that we just signed with Hollywood. So I certainly don't hate Xavier Worthy in any way. I think he could be a good pick at 32. But I'm not sure if he would be. Because there are some concerns with going over the middle of the field. There's obviously concerns with the fact he's only 165 pounds. Concerned that the fact that he's kind of small, don't like that. But he would be interesting with all that speed to burn, Tyreek Hill. he had a lot of speed. So it certainly could be interesting if he were to fall. And he would be a great deep threat, like probably immediately. You could put him going in a straight line, and you'll have about 12 corners probably trying to follow him to make sure he doesn't get burnt deep. That's how scary that speed downfield is. And I think it translates to game speed. But there are some worries with, him going over the middle or him, just being able to beat press with how small he is. But it would be an interesting pick. Some people say they think he's going to go like top 20. I highly doubt that. I'd be shocked. I guess he could, but I'd be shocked. And then that's kind of my two other receivers that I kind of like. What are some of your guys you think of?
Another wide receiver that I think is interesting in the draft is Troy Franklin. He is 6'2", 176 pounds. So he's kind of small and does not weigh that much, which could be an issue. But he is pretty fast. He's not Xavier Worthy fast, but he is still fast. He can change directions super easily and can really outrun most quarterbacks in the league. I mean, did I say quarterbacks or cornerbacks?
Kind of, but we get what you're saying. Quarterbacks,
Yeah, it doesn't
Carry
matter.
on. We're good. We good.
He's just a really fast wide receiver and I think would be a nice fit for the Chiefs of having someone that can get those short passes pretty easily and go long if needed to, especially if Rashee Rice is not playing this season. I think he's someone that the Chiefs could look at late second round. What do you think, Bob?
Yeah, I'm not sure about late second round. Most of the things I've seen is like pick 40 or 50, kind of like late 40, mid 40, something like that. And I'm personally not as big a fan of Franklin myself. I look at him and I see MVS. That's all I see. That fast, big straight line, can't catch the ball. Because I know he struggled with some drops before. And he's really not my favorite guy in the class, but that's kind of just me. I'm not going to act like I've watched 50 hours of film on him, because I haven't. I want to start watching more film, but I just haven't been able to. And then, speaking of guys I don't like quite as much, we've got receiver out of Florida State, Keon Coleman, who is, a lot of people liked it first because he had big size, big catches, big exciting guy. But there's certainly some worries about him, kind of. I mean, he kind of went from being like a higher first round player to now being like, a lot of people see him as like not even in the first round. A couple people do, not really everyone does though. But Coleman isn't very fast. He's big. He makes some kind of big spectacular catches, which is to like. But the one thing that he's not very good at is he can struggle to get separation. And in college, if you're bigger than everyone else, you can get away with not getting separation. But if you can't get separation at the NFL, you won't. You're not going to do well if you can't get separation. We have enough guys that can't get separation. If I have one more play where one more receiver where the route is completely covered the entire way down the field, I might do something bad. I might be on a watch list for committing crimes. And maybe Keon Coleman will surprise me and be better at separation than I expected. I mean, there was one thing at the Combine where he had a really good drill. Kitty, stop. Sorry, my bad. Cat's acting up. He's just being mean to my door. He doesn't like it. But, I think Keon Coleman could be interesting, but I personally do not like him.
I agree with pretty much everything you just said. I think that
he... My cat. Keep talking. Get my
cat.
Let me keep talking. Let me get my cat.
Well, I think that Keon Coleman could have some potential, but I think most of what you said is right. That I don't think that he's the guy that the Chiefs are looking for. I think he could do good on some other teams, but I don't think that he is what the Chiefs need.
Cat somewhat acquired. And then those are kind of most of the first round guys. So looking at some guys in the second round, we've got tight end Jatavion Sanders. I mean, Kelsey's not getting any younger. Tight end could be a need. Another Texas guy. Damn, how many Texas skill position players are there in this draft class? Or hell, T'Vondre Sweat as well. How many Texas players are there in this draft class? I can't take it anymore. We need some like Alabama or Michigan or OU. Come on, man. No, but Jatavion Sanders, and then speaking of Michigan, Chris Jenkins, defensive tackle from Michigan. Good run stuffer. Could be interesting to pair with Chris Jones if you get him in the second. Xavier Legette, good receiver. There are some questions about him because he's only really produced for 1 year. Might be a bit of a fluke year. Who knows? There are some questions, but some people say they remind me of DK Metcalf, and I know who we got the last time we passed on DK Metcalf, so getting him could be interesting. Malachi Corley, another interesting receiver prospect in the second. He's got some good ability, make plays, run after catch maybe. Ricky Pearsall, speaking of run after catch, the Florida receiver here. A guy I really like. I know Daniel Jeremiah really likes him. And, if Jeremiah likes him, then who am I to disagree with Daniel Jeremiah, one of my favorite draft sources. He's got good yards after catch. He's a bit raw as a prospect, but Florida itself isn't a great team. To be fair, though, then thinking back on the last Florida receiver we had that was kind of raw but had a really good after catch ability is in Kadarius Toney. Don't want to repeat of that, but no, I think Pearsall is a pretty good player, and could actually be really interesting to get. But I doubt he's available in this at 64. But that's another guy I like. And then Braden Fisk, defensive tackle. I think he's from Florida State. He's another interesting player, defensive tackle. Pretty athletic, if I'm remembering correctly. Could fit that Spags archetype a little bit. And that's kind of my lightning second round, of guys I like. And then kind of just later down the board, this kind of third, fourth, fifth, sixth, whatever. Brendan Rice. If you're the son of Jerry Rice, and you can't be too bad if you're related to him. Ben Sinnott, I heard he was on a top 30 visit with Kansas City. So that's always interesting. A tight end out of K-State. What's with the K-State players? FAU first this year now. Ben Sinnott, come on, man. But he could be interesting. Tight end, once again, always a bit of a need. Cade Stover could be an interesting pickup. And then Johnny Wilson's kind of intriguing. He is like 6'6". He's a super big receiver. He's got a lot of size to him. And then, but he hasn't produced a ton. But he actually looked all right at the combine. He could be interesting. He's kind of a boomer bust, in my opinion. If he works out, he could be kind of monstrous with that 6'6" height at receiver. It's actually crazy. So he's a player to kind of look at, guy to watch his career, see what he does, kind of. And then Isaac Guerendo at running back is a player that Brett Coleman really likes. Another one of my top guys. Check him out. Drop him a sub on YouTube if you haven't already. One of my favorite draft analyzers, football analyzers in general. He likes Guerendo. I like Guerendo. He's got a lot of athletic ability, kind of similar to Pacheco, which in a way might not be good because of that kind of, overlap. Two really similar players might not be the best. But also, if you can get 2-3 down running backs, then that's great. And then Elaire to be the kind of the third down pass catching back, maybe. Could be interesting. And then kind of in the third round, one player I really like, Renardo Green, a corner. Because, of course, after the Snead trade, corner became a lot bigger of a need for us than it had been. So I think putting Renardo Green on this team, who reminds me of Snead in some ways. He's not afraid to come down and make a tackle. He's not afraid to press. He's one of the best press covered corners, is what I've heard. So he could be pretty interesting. And then kind of writing up this list with Mohamed Mo Kamara, whichever one you want to say. Mo Kamara is what I've heard more. Who's an edge rusher, who's kind of a power, not super fast. I can't quite remember his bend, but he could be interesting. Once again, this is another guy Brett Coleman likes, so I like him too. But, he could be interesting pickup. At defensive end, always a position we need help. Kind of seems like he could be a Spags type of guy in my brain. Could be kind of more powerful type of player. And then I said rounding it off, but I'm stupid because we got one more player, Malik Washington, who is he's kind of another slot type of player for us. That if we were to draft, he could be really interesting for us. He reminds me in ways of some other receivers we've had before. He's got that kind of slot type of archetype, which that's kind of my one worry with him is how many slot archetypes do we need? Sky Moore, Rashee Rice, Lad McConkey, how many of these different slot archetype players would we need? But he really does bring a lot to the table. Another one of my favorite players. And those are kind of some of my favorite players in this class. I mean, I say favorite, I don't like Keon Coleman or Troy Franklin, but other than them, those are some players I like in this class. And I'm sure Charles likes them as well.
Absolutely.
The draft is really such an exciting time in the NFL world. I know the offseason can seem dull, but trust me, it's about to get a lot more.
Trust me, it's not dull until after the draft. If you think it's dull now, just wait.
Once we hit like mid-May, and like June, it's so boring then. You're just waiting for more football. What were you gonna say? Sorry.
I'm a UFL podcast. Come on.
Reporting from the St. Louis Battlehawks, the #1 source for all your Battlehawks information and news. Yeah, no, probably not.
One viewer.
Doesn't quite roll off the tongue as much, but that's when I do want to say there's going to be some fun events going on a little bit later, kind of during August at least. That's kind of when things start to get a little bit more fun during August. Once training camp starts again, things start to look fun. But really, that's about all we've got for today's episode. Hope you enjoyed. You want to see more podcasts? Make sure to drop a follow, drop a sub. I don't know what you're watching this on. I don't really have resources to know who's watching this where. Spoiler alert, I can't see your name, address, and social security number as much as I wish I could, because that'd be useful. It'd be useful to know those. But I can't, so just make sure to follow or sub or whatever if you want to see more of this content. Feedback's greatly appreciated. Leave a review, leave a comment, whatever. I don't really care, blah, blah, blah. All that YouTuber stuff that they say in their outros. Hope you all enjoyed. See you in the next one. Bye.